Regan's tear of wins has given him the points lead, but it is not enough to rest comfortably on. Long's one win at Richmond is supplemented by an impressive 5 top 5s out of 6 races. And on top of that, the two drivers have racked up a whopping 53 bonus points when combined. It's clear these are the men to beat this season. Will Darlington's difficulties shed light on weaknesses for either of them? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Often called the Lady in Black, Darlington suffers no fools. To see how this circuit bites drivers, let's head to our track guide.
Before Daytona, there was Darlington. In 2020, the track celebrated its 70th anniversary, and despite numerous ups and downs, the track has proved resilient through it all, truly being the track too tough to tame. When Darlington was completed in 1950, there wasn't anything like it in the Southeast. It could only be compared in the U.S. to Indianapolis. Its unique shape is what really does it. This track was designed long before cars could achieve the speeds they do now, and while the asphalt is wide, the actual raceable track surface is very narrow through the turns, and that starts in turns 1 and 2. This is the wide end of the speedway. You'll often see cars enter up high, drift down a touch before coming back up to the wall, and then they try to diamond off turn 2. That's right, the corner actually sharpens from turns 1 and 2. And if you don't nail that turn 2 right, you'll leave a pretty nasty mark on the exit of the turn 2 wall. You fly down the backstretch and hit turns 3 and 4, which are much more symmetrical, but together present a much tighter radius than 1 and 2. You'll tend to enter high and stay high all the way to the exit of 4. When tires start to fade, you'll feel it at this end of the track more. Pretty much only the upper echelon of stock cars race at Darlington. The Cup cars, of course, having their annual Southern 500, a race that's perhaps the toughest 500-mile race on drivers and equipment. Today, here on GSRC and iRacing, Darlington will show us who has nerves of steel as they receive their Darlington stripes. Sit down and hold on for a wild one.
Christian, this place has a lot of character, and, well, when you have character, unfortunately for the drivers, means an added level of difficulty usually.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's easy getting through 1 and 2, but it's easier getting through 1 and 2 at this track than it is through 3 and 4, but coming off of turn 2 is always difficult. Obviously, the wall comes up very, very quickly as you drop off the banking. 3 and 4 is... yeah, I mean, it's just something else. In terms of a racetrack, it's probably one of the best oval tracks there actually is, just period. I mean, it's a low surface. It's just genuinely very, very difficult to get around the place. And yeah, if you win this race, then, well, you definitely had to earn it, even if you didn't necessarily have to race head-to-head with anybody.
So it'll be a driver's track, no doubt. But before we get to them driving around the track, let's mention that today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SimMSA.net. The PRL NASCAR Cup Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. So we take a look at the championship. I briefly mentioned that it is not much between Richard Regan Jr. and Matthew Long, 12 points between them. And then it's another few back down to James O'Brien, who's got to do a little bit of work to get back into the hunt. Bradley Hawley, surprisingly, down in 4th at this stage of the season, but you really can't count out the multi-time champion. Charles Sumner rounds out your top 5, a scant 6 points back from Bradley. We also have a team's championship. Christian, why don't you run down that?
No surprises, private label Team Hype. I've got a substantial lead in the team's championship, 510 points. Second place, James Bird Racing, is almost 100 points back, 98 points back, but it's a pretty tight battle actually for second place between James Bird Racing and Waterback Racing Black. They're in 3rd, just 1 point behind. Connor Hall Esports is 120 points off the lead in 4th, and SGE Esports is a further 5 points back in 5th.
Now, for today's event, as we mentioned, we are in round 7. It is 160 laps that the drivers will be doing, and they have no spare cars. A lot of laps to try and survive, and certainly trying to keep the thing steady to the end will be important. It is open setup, and they have a hard 24 incident limit. Otherwise, if they go over that, they will be disqualified on the spot. So they certainly have to watch out for that. They're working on some bonus points in a few moments, as they will be going for the pole position in just about 3 minutes time. But right now they're wrapping up the warm-up out there as the sun continues to set. We're going to get a nice twilight race into the evening under the lights, so we'll see that track condition cool off as the day goes on. Richard Regan Jr. is up at the top spot in the warm-up over his a regular rival here in the oval side now, Abner Acosta. Matthew Long, surprisingly, is down in 4th.
It's not too far back, though. He's about a 1/10.5 off the pace right now, which strangely, you would normally say that was quite far off for, say, a 1.5-mile track or something like that, but for Darlington, it's actually really not that bad, and there's definitely never really a lineup between qualifying and race pace. They're two totally distinct things at this racetrack. It's interesting to mention about the weather, obviously, with it kind of being a night race, at least the track's a little bit cooler. That's going to make Darlington a little bit easier. Not a lot easier, but a little bit easier. It's definitely much more tricky when it's hot and slick. But the thing with the track actually having more grip and being colder is it means that if you do get in the wall, you're going to be going faster when you do it. So the margin for error almost actually gets less when the track gets fast.
As we watch Robert Visaw Jr. here, he's got a pretty nice looking rig, even has it color coordinated on top of it. Number 3 on track, but well far down the timing sheets, as we don't have the largest of fields at only 24 signed up currently. But he's still got time. It's not the warm-up that counts. It is the race itself. Of course, where he puts himself in qualifying could help out in that a lot. So hopefully he can get that 1-lap pace up. The 28 rubbing against the wall, as well as Matthew Long struggling a little bit there. One of the multiple cars that have come out with vintage paint schemes and homages to some of their favorites. The 184, another one of those out there. Bradley Holly running similar to what he did in the trucks earlier this week.
Yeah, definitely always cool schemes for this race. And it's kind of one of the big things, as well as obviously the track itself. And something about the track that's worth noting is that it was obviously updated fairly recently here on iRacing, and one of the updates, which sounds minor but is actually more significant than people might think, is the safer barrier didn't actually used to go all the way between turns, so down the straightaways, and there used to kind of be like dips in and out of the corners, especially in 3 and 4, and you would always sort of use those as markers as a driver, and going into 3 it was sort of always a challenge to drop into that dip right before the barrier started, and now obviously that's gone away, so you can't really do that as much, and it also means that you can't run as wide on corner exits. So if it suddenly got easier to get into the wall at this track, that might be why.
Yeah, there were plenty of drivers that definitely, unfortunately, made friends with that barrier in the truck race. And I know we're going to be referencing that a lot, but that's because it does act as a good reference here today as to what to expect. Unfortunately, that saw a lot of cautions. We'll see if they can defy those expectations as the session ticks on over to qualifying. Last of the warm-up has finished, and they'll each get 2 laps. It is their quickest of those 2 that will place them on the grid. It is not an average. It is basically the quickest that you can go amongst them. And I think Josh Daniels, Patrick Cowgill look like they're going to be some of our first. Cowgill definitely paying homage here in the old Lowe's scheme.
Yeah, another cool car, and this time it really is kind of 2 attempts at the lap. Obviously, grab the wall on that one, it's a pretty clear deal to reset and go for the second one. It's something you don't really see a 1.5 miles, so drivers kind of using the first one to wind up, but this track for sure, it really is 2 attempts at it, and I think we're going to see a lot of the field actually use that.
Yeah, and Cowgill sets off on his first flyer. Ride it up high through the middle. Does he try and get it nice and tucked down. Oh, he leaves it up high, keeps it clean of the wall, down the backstretch into turn 3, the more trickier of the two. And he is very much flirting up with that outside barrier, cuts down low off of it, comes to the line. What's it going to be for our first time lap? It'll be a 28.524. Now we wait for others to beat it, and Trent Dinkle does so immediately.
28.4 right off the bat. And some of the fast times in practice are obviously down in the low 28.0s. And there you go, Abner Acosta 28.081. Take the pole by 0.3 so far.
So Abner, the quickest on the track. Patrick Cowgill for his second time is not faster, about 5/100ths slower. So fourth is the best he's going to see. We'll see if it actually stays put. Now, I love Baron Hilton's paint scheme. I know we've gone off of him, but the 47 gets my kudos for perhaps the most creative paint here, going back to Le Mans Porsches from the 80s, possibly late 70s, actually. I'd have to double check.
Yeah, definitely a different, well, a non-NASCAR throwback, should we say, but a throwback nonetheless.
All right, Robert Besaw Jr. for the first time, a 28.847. That's only good enough for 10th, which kind of jives with what we saw in practice. It's not like he's looking too quick at the moment.
Yeah, the SGE eSports guys seem to be struggling a little bit this week, and it is a difficult track, but obviously there is a lot of difference between race pace and the qualifying around here. So even though the qualifying pace might not be there, doesn't mean that the race pace won't be good, especially over a long run.
28.6, 2/10 faster. He's up to 9th, and we still got a lot of drivers that need to qualify. This is James O'Brien, second time of asking. 28.2. That will put him up onto the front row, but still impressively 2/10 off Abner Acosta. The former road driver has been really spanking the field here today.
Yeah, for O'Brien, 2/10 off his practice time as well, so yeah, he definitely could have hit something better there. I don't think it's going to set him back too badly. Bradley Holly's gone into fourth with a 281, so he's not going to beat O'Brien to the front row, but there's a couple of drivers who definitely have the ability to do so. Richard Regan Jr. is one of them. He hasn't got out for a time yet.
Got 4 drivers that won't be allowed to qualify, so don't expect to see Lane, Fowler, Medina, or Hall to the track. Holly, we always expect to try and get a qualifying time in, and he doesn't go quicker, so he'll stay put in 4th. And I just saw Richard Regan Jr. start to head out onto the track. That could upset the apple cart.
Yeah, and he's waited quite a long time, actually, almost 4 minutes into the session, so he's only got a minute to pull off his warm-up lap and the time lap, so if he makes a mistake, he's actually probably in a bit of trouble with that one.
I don't think he's going to have enough time for both of them. This might be a single flyer for him. Cervantes, and his second lap is going to be a 28.3. That'll put him in 7th. This is Mark Kalin. Looks like, oh, he may have brushed the wall on his first one.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. You see there the right side of the car is kinked up just a little bit.
So
well,
Kalen's...
a bit more than a little bit, actually.
yeah, that's kind of drastic. And his second one, a 28.7, actually doesn't do too bad considering that damage. He'll get 15th and immediately up to the pole for Richard Regan Jr. ahead of Acosta by a 10th. He doesn't need that second lap.
Yeah, left it very, very late, though. Obviously, 10 seconds left in the session when he crossed the line, so... that was very tight. I don't even think there was much need for him to do that, but congrats to him for getting the pole with such an under pressure lap.
Look up confidence in the dictionary, and you're going to see Richard Regan Jr. as we go through the starting order. Regan on the pole today with Acosta starting in 2nd place. It'll be James O'Brien who starts in P3 with Taylor Stout in 4th. Bradley Holly only qualifying in 5th today. Matthew Long, 2nd place in the championship, starts from 6th. Inside of row 4, it's Waldo Walden with Danny Cervantes to his outside. Trent Dinkle and the Days of Thunder scheme tonight starts from 9th, and Josh Daniels will be P10.
Missing out on the top 10, but lining up Just in 11th there, Pat Harvey with Patrick Cowgill alongside him in 12th. Brandon Walter back there actually in 13th. Expected to see him a little bit higher up. Robert Bissell Jr. we talked about, a little bit off pace in qualifying, but lining up in 14th. Mark Kalin in 15th with Doug Evans alongside him in 16th. Byron Hilton and Michael Witt were the last two drivers to actually set a qualifying time in 17th and 18th. And then Elliott White and Colton Lane will line up in 19th and 20th.
A lot of drivers that did not set a time that could have if they wanted to. Sumner starts 21st, Zemke in 22nd, and Brown in 23rd. You've got Duke and Guerra rounding out the 25-car field here today. We got some onboards as well. So as we look through them, Patrick Cowgill, this is Dinkle that we're looking at first. Says he's got a traditional setups, an OVR for Trent here today. Now we're taking a look at Patrick Cowgill, starting from 12th on the grid, ready to go. Almost looks like he's got it by his front door, actually. I just noticed.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Looks like he doesn't need any AC. He can just open the door.
And this is Richard Regan Jr., our pole sitter, again, traditionally with his VR headset. And then we already saw the other one already a little farther down the order, unfortunately. Not too far down, I should say. 14th for Robert B. Saw Jr., who was second last time out at Kansas. Let's see if he could do one better than that today here at another sort of mile and a half, mile and 3/10, I suppose we should say. Got a few drivers that we did mention rocking the old liveries. A few more that we have been given information on. Brandon Walter has the 2001 Jeff Burton Sitco Ford Taurus. Got Richard Regan Jr. running 98 Kenny Irwin car. So he's got the Chevy Silverado scheme on that one. We got James O'Brien, as I like this, as Buddy Baker, the old Napa Oldsmobile. And then another one that I definitely remember from my childhood, Taylor Stout in the Davey Allison Haviland car.
I'm surprised we actually only see one of those out there. Normally you see quite a few.
Yeah. Well, they did try and kind of coordinate a little bit. Drivers posted their schemes before we came live so that nobody really overlapped each other too much. But already the pace car is in, and Richard Regan Jr. has control. Waiting for that green flag, giving it quite a long time. There it is, and he is off, but he does not get a jump over the 5. The 5's got room, so he slots back in behind that 46 and cuts down in front of O'Brien.
Yeah, they're pretty typical Darlington start right there at the front of the field. Everybody just trying to get in single file.
Yeah, I'm not seeing too much in the way of side-by-side racing. And it looks like everybody manages to get off of 2 without anything crazy from there. What about turn 4? Still getting these tires up to temperature. Is everybody going to be able to handle these machines coming through the first lap? Nope, we got a spinner down to the inside. That is the 27 of Elliott White. No caution, though.
Yeah, disastrous way to start the race for Elliott White, though. Obviously, he was starting at the back anyway, but didn't even complete first lap before pretty much taking himself out of the race right there. Unfortunately,
everybody else still running as they come off for the second time through. We had a battle for third, Hawley and O'Brien, and it's going to go the way of O'Brien this time. Oh, but a big bobble from Hawley.
Yeah, Hawley very, very loose on entry to 1 right there. It still looks pretty loose coming through turn 2, so obviously handling not where he'd want it right now at the start of the run.
Yeah, the car does not seem terribly happy. It is open setup, though, Christian. So do you think this is a case where maybe he's set it up for the long run to kind of get into its groove later on?
It's possible. I mean, this track is just notoriously tricky to set up for because it's all, well, I say it's all about driver comfort, and I kind of feel like it is, to be honest, because if you're not comfortable in the car, it doesn't really matter how fast it is. You just won't get any pace out of it. So if you're worried about getting tight, then you definitely want to start the run loose.
Oh, I'd say he started it pretty loose. He's at least still in 4th place, hasn't lost a position out of that very single file. Everybody spreading out, almost looks like more like an F1 race as everybody kind of gives a little bit of a gap to those in front.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where you're really out here racing the racetrack rather than each other. I mean, we'll see some side-by-side battles, I'm sure, as it kind of comes down towards the end of the race, but the track is just so difficult to get around on your own. Everybody's kind of aware of that, and so you'll see actually a lot of give and take at this racetrack, which is pretty cool to see.
I think Cowgill hit the wall. The 31 is down low, and he's got some severe damage on the right rear. So I did see him catch it in turns 1 and 2, but he already had the damage coming into there. He's pitting very early. This is absolutely not scheduled. So a very bad start for 2 of our drivers. Elliott White actually took a tow. He's not going to compete in the rest of this race.
Yeah, and a lot of damage on the 31 actually on both sides of the car, so it'll be interesting to see what's happened to him to be able to pick that up.
We're going to see if we can find it, figure out what happened. We're only on lap 7, so this is either a big mistake very early. And see, yeah, there's where I think what might be the second time that he caught the wall, because the damage was already on the bumper at that stage.
Yeah, definitely looked like that was the second time, as you say, and he must have felt like it was pretty significant damage because he immediately came down pit road.
Matthew Long trying to make some moves, but he's going underneath the 9 of O'Brien, and O'Brien's going to give up the ghost on that one, but his checking up, oh, he hits the wall, drifts a little bit high. The 25 tries to take evasive action to keep him from bouncing into him. And now, oh, they are going to get each other anyways. Can he keep it out of the wall? I think O'Brien is still in it, and he's going to be able to cut down in front, but these are tense moments in lap 8 of a 160-lap race.
Yeah, and that's kind of the difficulty of this racetrack. You never want to be side by side with someone for any longer than absolutely necessary, because as you saw there, coming off of turn 2, he was just a little bit higher than he'd normally been. He just got straight into the fence.
Well, that pulled them well far back from the likes of Bradley Hawley, who they were gaining on before, as well as Matthew Long, too. There you can see the red number 28 pulling away from them. The 2 that haven't drifted apart, though, are Regan Jr. and Acosta. Only 2 tenths between them, are 2 leaders right now, and they appear to be cruising.
Yeah, and we know that Acosta can struggle a little bit when it comes to long run pace, so it'll be interesting to see if he can hold on to Regan Jr. here, but they're under no threat from anybody right now. Bradley Hawley's about a second behind, but he's not really running them down. He's just kind of lurking there.
I wonder if that's where he wants to put it. Maybe he is trying to think more about the tires and see if he can conserve them. So let's jump back a little farther. Pat Harvey in the 67 has got quite a bit of a threat from the 5-1. And Harvey there leading him by just about a car length. We hop on board with the Days of Thunder throwback that we mentioned earlier.
Going into turn 1, it's just always kind of so scary. You see right there up ahead, somebody's got into the fence. It's the 25 of Cervantes, and that's why it's scary through turn 1, because you kind of drop down into the racetrack, and if you've carried a little bit too much speed and just got it a little bit wrong, it's inevitable that you'll slide up into the outside wall, and we're going to see that a lot throughout the night.
Going to watch him on board the 25. Let's see what the Waterback Orange driver has for a ride here. Very low and a little too high. Bounces him, thankfully, back underneath everybody, so all the 4 behind him were able to avoid that. Oh, and we got a pass for the lead. Acosta just overtook Regan.
Yeah, Bradley Hawley's actually now moved into this fight. Looks like Richard Regan Jr.'s really wound the pace back.
He didn't hit the wall or anything. It didn't look like he had any sort of moment. Just for some reason, he kind of let Abner through. We're going to take another look at it.
Oh, and he's just got into the wall on the exit of 2. It's not a big hit, but it's checked him up.
Yeah, it gave Hawley a look. We're on the replay right now. See if we can find out something different about... Oh, he did catch it in the middle of the corner, though. Maybe that's what elicited it.
Yeah, and it had kind of been obvious that Acosta was sort of looking like he wanted to make a bit of a move, and Regan Jr. is into the wall again through 1 and 2. It's all these light taps, but you can't keep doing it. You will get into it pretty heavily if you're grabbing it a little bit. It's not going to be long until you have a big incident with it.
Yeah, he had to chase the car big time off of 2. This time he claps the outside into 3. Holly is watching this probably somewhat nervously now as he's witnessed multiple contacts with the wall, and he's losing touch with Abner Acosta on top of it. Let's see if he can keep it a little cleaner this time. So far, so good for the 46. Holly trying to see if he can find a way past. He's got to run, but he backs out of it before 3. Oh, this is going to be a good opportunity because the 46 definitely looked like he was sliding absolute magnet to that barrier, and now Holly is into second.
Yeah, and I could just see that, like, I know as they were going into the corner there, Regan Jr. you just saw him pull away, and it's like there was a low chance that was going to stick, and that's the really difficult part of this racetrack. And you wonder why everybody gets up into the wall. He's actually been passed by Matthew Long now as well, but it's because that's where the pace is. So you've got to run up there to try and actually go fast, and it's just it's a real battle between knowing where and how much you can push before you'll get into the wall, and then once you've got into it once, it does become that kind of magnet style effect where you've got to then kind of find a way to get out of the rhythm that's putting you in the fence in the first place, and it's hard to do.
28 with some lap traffic already. Making it a little bit unnerving. That checked him up, and Regan might have a shot to get back onto the podium. Not quite. He's not going to send it down into 3 this time. Interesting to note, actually, that Acosta, double-checked, he's only had a single top 5 finish here in the Cup Series this season. So for him to lead like this is looking good, but we heard Christian mention it earlier. He tends to be good early, and then for some reason the car just starts to fade. See if he can buck that trend tonight.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think this looks like a really good opportunity for Bradley Holly, actually. His last lap was 10th and a half faster than Acosta. He's been closing him down. So I think with Regan Jr. struggling back and forth right now, it could be an opportunity for Holly to play himself back into this race and this championship.
And unless Regan Jr. can turn this around for himself as well, he's going to see his 3 out of 4 not become 4 out of 5. Down to the inside into turn 3. Holly much quicker now. Oh, but sending it hard into the corner. Acosta's going to make him fight for it. That's going to get him very loose. Has just enough time to catch it before he claps either the wall or the car next to him. Bradley Holly has to regroup and try something else.
Yeah, the best way to pass is to get to somebody's right rear so that they're forced to give you the top. But obviously it's very difficult to kind of pry someone off the wall at this racetrack.
There's just no space to get a word in edgewise. So he's going to ride behind him this time through. So we ride on board with Bradley Holly. Looking up at Abner Acosta. Even with that fight and that moment, it is still 2 seconds back to Matthew Long.
Yeah, Matthew Long's actually been having a quiet race. He started in 6th, he's up to 3rd. He could be a factor in this as we get deeper into the race, but has managed to avoid getting into the wall, getting into any battles. And that's really the way that you've got to run this racetrack. You don't want to tear the car up early. It's inevitable that at some point you're going to hit the wall. Absolutely everybody hits the wall during the race. It's not even a question as to if you're going to do it. You are going to do it. So when you do get into the fence, you do want it to tend to be late on into the race, so that you've actually been able to kind of have a clean car for the majority of it and make the use of that. You don't want to do what Richard Regan Jr. has done, which is kind of get into the wall pretty heavily, actually, very early on into the race.
And Long's consistency has honestly been sort of his strength all season. He is yet to finish outside of the top 10 in all 6 races and has only missed the top 5 once. We're 24 laps in, still plenty of this thing to go. And the top 5 on the track are pretty much all kind of picking their spots and running their own race. Let's look farther back in the mid-pack, see what's happening throughout there. Down in 7th place, Pat Harvey, about 0.3 of a second ahead of Taylor Stout. And also they're pulling along Robert Besaw Jr. up from 14th to 9th. So yes, that race pace does look a lot better than his qualifying and practice.
Yeah, last time by he ran 30.869, which for some context is basically as fast as anybody inside the top 5.
Sorry, that was a 66 we saw in the front of him. Stout up into the wall, and he's going to get it a second time as Kalen also has to avoid him.
Yeah, and he got heavy into the wall there right on the exit of 2.
That was a Stout hit, and the 66 falls to 10th because of it. So let's take a look. Yeah, you can see he's already hit it once here, and then the second time he was hanging up high, and Mark Kalen had just enough space to try and squeeze through. So Besaw now up to 8th position.
Yeah, he's definitely recovering from that relatively poor qualifying, but up inside the top 10, and like I say, he's still moving. He's still got some good pace in that car.
Michael Witt is closing in on Josh Daniels for 11th. That could be an interesting fight. The 77 started this one position higher, moving backwards, opposed to Witt, who's up 6 spots from the grid.
And everybody just getting slightly closer to the wall in 1 and 2, and as we saw on the previous lap, it's really, really difficult to avoid getting into the wall coming off of turn 2, just because of kind of how the track tightens up on exit. It gives you this impression that you can sort of just keep getting more and more and more, and you can up until the moment you suddenly can't, and then there's no room for recovery at all. You just go straight into the fence.
Despite a number of times of seeing drivers hit the wall and a number of incidents, we haven't had any cautions, and yet we still have had a few DNFs. We mentioned Elliott White decided not to come back after that hard hit. Patrick Cowgill, unfortunately, did not feel good about how the car was handling, so he parked it. He did make a few hits there along the way, so kind of fed his decision. Chad Brown and James Duke also out of the race. And do we have a taker for an official stop, or is this might be some damage on Baron Hilton in the 47?
Looks like he's got some right front. Yeah, significant amount of right front actually.
I'll take a wager that he took a piece of turn 2 with him, unfortunately. So this will put him a lap down.
I expect to see most kind of stretch it out to around about lap 53, 55 sort of range. But that's a big ask. You got to be really careful on the tires, especially in the first run, to actually make that work. I suspect we will see a caution before that happens.
As we watch this battle for 11th effectively, it's Josh Daniels, actually more for 12th, I'd say. Colton Lane chasing Daniels. Lane was not allowed to qualify, had to start from the back of the field. Ooh, gets loose off of 4 and is working his way towards P12, but behind him he's got Waldo Walden, and I'm not sure why we've got Waldo as far back as he is, because he started in 7th, but he's now in 14th, and I don't recall any sort of crazy happenings with him.
Yeah, and the car looks pretty clean on the left side. We'll have to check out the right side, see if he's been into the fence, but yeah, that's definitely a strange one. Obviously, like you say, started in 7th and dropped down to 14th. Yeah, it doesn't look like the right side's tore up. It looks like there might be a little bit of right front damage, but certainly not a massive amount, and not enough to explain dropping that many positions.
Ooh, the 60 definitely caught a little bit of it. Just grazed it, I think. Oh, it got very close out of 2. So you're right, the driver's just getting dangerously close to that contact, and sometimes actually making the contact. And once again, it looked like out of 4, maybe he got scared by it or just felt a little bit of a bump to that right side as he took avoiding action down low for a brief moment. See if he's better off of 2 this time. Oh, no.
And it just lures you in, you know, like you run the laps and you think like, yeah, okay, this is going well. I've kind of got it figured out. And as soon as you think that you've got this place figured out, that's when the wall gets you, because you haven't, because nobody has. This place is extremely difficult. Everybody, even at the highest levels, finds this a very challenging track to get around.
A little bit of behind the curtains. I had to run a lot of those laps for the track guide. I did not have fun, to tell you the truth. That was frustrating.
There's two kinds of ways of looking at this racetrack. You either find the difficulty of it fun and challenging, and that's enjoyable, or yeah, it's the other thing. You find it immensely frustrating, and it seems very polarizing. I think everybody loves it for the history, but not everybody has a fun time trying to drive this track.
You know, it's starting to look like Richard Regan Jr. is starting to have a little fun, because he's regained ground on Matthew Long. I wonder if he's picking up the pace once again. In fact, wow, he looked very strong off of 4. He might have a shot at taking third away down into the first corner. That's facilitated by Long, who definitely lifts.
Yeah, and that's something that's cool to see. There's a lot of give and take at this racetrack. Normally, the accepted protocol is that if somebody has a portion of the car on you, say going into the corner, that it's theirs at that point. So it's cool to see that that's kind of still alive and running.
They're going by Doug Evans. This is lapping him, who's way up against the wall, putting some scratches on a more unique paint scheme and getting loose behind him as Trent Dinkle catching it. But the paint scheme on Doug Evans isn't even NASCAR. His is referencing a funny car from Don Prudhomme.
Pretty cool looking car, though. You see the... Whoa!
It's not going to look cool for long.
Fence. Nearly got into Trent Dinkle as he was passing him as well.
Oh, goodness. I really am kind of shocked we haven't seen a caution up to this point. So kudos to all the drivers for keeping it together this long. By the way, Abner Acosta up in front of these two, a whole 1.5 seconds away from Bradley Holly. So Holly, after his scary moment, just looks like maybe he backed off, or maybe he really doesn't have the pace for the 5.
Well, you say he doesn't have the pace for the 5, but this pair at the front are significantly quicker than everybody else in the field. They're about 2 to 3 tenths a lap faster than anybody else, and that's really impressive so late into the run. Obviously, we talked about Acosta and said that there was maybe some question marks over his long run pace. Well, definitely isn't now. He's the fastest driver out there.
Yeah, he and Holly are a whole 5 seconds ahead of Richard Regan Jr., who just took that 3rd spot. You're right. This looks like some stunning pace. We're about to hit lap 40 and have not seen the yellow laundry since we first got the green at this race. Long, what is wrong with this number 28? Not only has he been passed by Regan Jr., but O'Brien is already on top of him.
Yeah, and he's lost a lot of pace the last couple of laps. His last lap was 31.5, half a second slower than the leader.
O'Brien not able to get a run off of 2 this time. But we saw Richard Regan Jr. make pretty quick work. Oh, I think he maybe touched it, but very, very lightly. And this speeds up the 6 comparatively, the 9 rather. He's going to be able to get through. Long now drops to 5th.
Yeah, Long just struggling right now, it seems. And didn't look like there's much wrong with the line there through 3 and 4. He grabbed the wall a little bit, but definitely not a lot. Just looks like he's really struggling to get off the corner. You see even off the 2 right there, just O'Brien was just pulling away from him.
Oh, we did have an accident not long ago, I think. Cervantes? Yeah, he hit the wall, no caution. He bounced to the bottom. And this is out of turn 2. Actually, did he exit out, or did he run out of incidents? I wonder.
That would be quite surprising if he ran out of incidents this early on in the race. It is a 2X. Ooh, that was a heavy hit to the outside wall.
That was suspicious.
Like he ran out of incidents there, though.
Yeah, he didn't come to a complete halt, which you have to do before the car is able to be towed here in the sim. So I think he maybe just played a little rough with it today and didn't even make the halfway mark.
It's easier to do than might than it might appear, though. Obviously, the incident limit's 24, and if you get into the wall heavy enough, it's a 2x contact. So you can only do that 12 times, and at most racetracks, you'd be thinking you can only hit the wall 12 times, but at Darlington, hitting the wall 12 times is not that uncommon.
Yeah, so that is his day done. 20 left out of 25 starters. Baron Hilton, the last runner, 2 laps down in that 47. In fact, we're down to 17 left on the lead lap because of this extended green flag running that we've been experiencing. That's our leader on screen, Abner Acosta, continuing to pull away. But we now head back to the 501 and the 28. Long still not seeing those woes go away because Dinkel has already caught up to him. And I'm kind of wondering that if we'll see Matthew Long maybe try to take an early stop to do some things to the car, see if he can get it handling any better than it is.
Yeah, he looks like he's got like negative drive off the corner right now. He's just all over the place, especially coming out of 4. Out of 2, he's actually able to get decently off the corner, but both into 3, he kind of really woes it up.
Oh.
You see Dinkel actually getting into the fence there, but just coming off of 4, Long just doesn't seem to be able to get off the corner at all. You see there, just really just kicked out coming out of the corner and ended up actually down in the lower lane. And we've got somebody blowing up on the backstretch.
That's bizarre.
It looks like it's Doug Evans.
Yeah, the 41 down on the lane. Did he hit something, or is this? Oh yeah, this. Oh, okay, this is bizarre. He loses it in a straight line on the front stretch and hits the inside wall, and that's what blew his engine. Maybe he had some sort of hardware failure or something here. What if we could ride on board to be able to see his wheel? This is the 41 that has the issue. Riding on board with him here. It'll be down the front stretch that I think it happens. So this must be after this, yeah, because he was already on the bottom on the backstretch next time through. Let's sit and watch. So far, nothing seems really untowards. And he's completely fine.
Oh, he just drifted up into the outside wall, and then it fired him back down to the inside wall.
That was unusual. Guess it just gripped the tires in the wrong way, and so wound up just launching him down to the inside. Both of these two, Long and Dinkel, sliding off of 4. They thankfully keep off the wall. This sun has got to be a bit of an issue too. I keep noticing it from the driver's perspective. The setting sun does not look friendly on the backstretch.
Oh, it never is. It's actually really, really difficult coming down into 3 until it gets behind that tower. Your visibility is practically none coming down the backstretch. So as if the track wasn't hard enough, it's a little bit harder when it's kind of going through sunset.
Still chasing that 28, looking for a top 5. As the 501 just hovers behind a craft-themed car, and it looks like he's going to scrape the wall. He's going to try to get underneath before it gets worse, and a bunch of hits for the 28 wind up him losing 5th and now 6th as Besaw is able to sneak by.
Yeah, and Long really struggling, and he's getting to the point where he can actually at least make a pit stop and not be kind of off sequence with everybody. And I figure as soon as he feels like it's viable to do that, he's going to be coming down because he's significantly off the pace compared to other drivers around him. The majority, the top 5 is running 31.1s, 31.2s. He's in the 31.7s, and sometimes actually even slower than that. So he's losing a lot of time.
Waldo Walden also losing spots to Brandon Walter and a few others. He's down in 15th now. He had more contact with the wall. This is Bradley Hawley that we see on there. And actually, that's the 84 that I was just mentioning. Waldo Walden trying to get out of the way of lapping cars. And you called it. Matthew Long is in. The 28 decides he's had enough of this.
Yeah, I don't think he really had any choice, to be honest. Colton Lane also looks like he's coming down as well, so This is probably going to kick off pit stops, but Matthew Long, he's got to get something done on this car and then stop, because it just looked like he had no drive off at all for maybe the last 10 to 15 laps of that run, and just lost a significant amount of track position.
We see Colton Lane getting service, 4 tires, and should be on his way. We get anybody else trying to respond, maybe? I'm checking pit lane entry, and I'm not seeing anybody yet. Well, Long is back out. Lane is rolling out of the pits and back to the track itself. This is Abner Acosta off of turn 2. Ooh, certainly have his own issues. He's coming out now behind Long, who is a lap down, nearly 2 laps down. I think he should be able to keep from having to experience that, because he's got fresh tires, and Acosta is running on 54 lap old tires.
Yeah, it looks like Taylor Stout's come down for a pit stop as well, but that's the risk of this racetrack with being one of the early pitters. You will go at least 1 lap down. You can sometimes go 2 laps down, and obviously if a caution comes out whilst you're 2 laps down, that's probably actually the end of your race. So it's a high risk move. You don't really want to be the first guy to pit. Mark Kalin tried to pit. He tried to bring it in and came too late and missed his commitment cone. He's going to have to go around and lose time. One of those embarrassingly easy things to do here at Darlington with that huge wide apron. Yeah, and there's a couple of options. You see him just completely sailing past the cone. You'll see some drivers will try and cut down from the banking to make it into pit road. Others will just run on the flat. It's a little bit preference, because the flat is so wide, you can actually get it woed up in time. Quite a few of our front runners have actually come down there. Bradley Hawley, James O'Brien, Mark Kalin has made it into the pit lane. Charles Summers in, and it looked like Richard Regan Jr. is also coming into the pit road.
He did indeed. Acosta did not. Dinkle stays out. Besaw Jr. still running. Pat Harvey is going to come in from 5th. So who do we see responding from our top drivers? Well, right now, Abner Acosta is making his way to the pits. So who will this advantage between himself, Regan Jr., and Bradley Hawley, who were our podium runners before this sequence kicked off?
Well, I think realistically, the only driver that can actually make something happen here out of the top 3 is probably actually going to be Hawley, because he pit early and he was within striking distance of Acosta. So he's had 1 lap out there. He might be able to jump him here.
He's back on the lead lap, just went by. Acosta has the long trundle down the lane to his pit stall, which he finally finds. Still waiting on a couple more to go in. Besaw Jr., Witt, Guerra also needs to pit. Brandon Walter as well. Acosta just taking left sides. Bradley Hawley is rolling, and he is definitely going to jump Abner Acosta. In fact, he's by a wide margin.
Yeah, a little bit checked up there by the 519, but still takes the lead pretty easily. Okay.
Looks like Michael Witt now pitting, and I heard Besaw Jr. saying he's heading in. So we've just got a couple more, and then we've had everybody down for a scheduled pit stop for fuel and tires. There's Besaw. Going to hand the lead back over now to Bradley Hawley or Walter. No, I think it will be Walter who is yet to pit in the 99.
Yeah, Walter Besaw Jr. is in. Walter still needs to pit. Guerra still needs to pit actually as well.
And Guerra's going to keep going too. In fact, he just gave a lap back to Abner Acosta. The 99 doing likewise with many cars on fresher tires, making it look easy. Look at my goodness, the 62 looks like he's in a different class of car. Oh, and there's this almost spin behind him. I think that was Harvey in the 67. He keeps it from going around, so still no caution.
Yeah, had a massive moment on the entry to 3 right there. I'm not sure who straightened him out, but he had some help to kind of not have a bigger incident there. But he's going to have pretty heavy damage both sides of the car after this. I believe
Lane?
60 is Colton Lane behind him. see there, it just gets really wicked loose. And actually gets straightened up by being in between lane and the wall, so quite a lot of damage from that.
Oh, and Brandon Walters done the same as Kalen. Just missed his pit entry. He keeps going. Guerra made it in. How many laps can they usually do on fuel for Green Flag Racing? The 99's got quite a long run going here.
We're kind of nearing the limit at that point, but the limit here is most definitely tires rather than fuel, as you can kind of see in terms of the drop-off and how much slower these guys who are still out on track are relative to everybody else who's pit.
This time I think he's got it. So Holly now inherits the lead off of him, and this is certainly going to hurt the hopes of Walter. But he'll have the freshest tires of anybody, I suppose. There's the 184, 3 seconds over Abner Acosta. I wonder what these last laps have been like since their pit stops comparatively. Can we get a lap comparison maybe between the 184 and the 5 to see if he's been pulling away or if this has been advantage to one or the other? So it looks like as they come across, Acosta actually is quicker, consistently quicker.
Yeah, and Acosta has got slightly fresher tires, so that's not too surprising, but I think the big difference here has actually been just traffic. There's now so many cars to cut through, and Holly's the first guy to get to them, so he's kind of having to work his way through, and it's slowing down his laps quite considerably. The gap in terms of tires is actually only 2 laps between them, so really not a huge amount. That will definitely equalize out probably about another 10 to 11 laps into this run.
Less than 100 laps to go in the race now. So after that pit sequence, here's our updated order. Holly leads, Acosta 2 seconds behind, but does seem quick. Richard Regan Jr. returns in 3rd, but he's also about 4 seconds back himself. James O'Brien wound up coming back in P4, and Matthew Long rounds out the top 5. So he got some of those spots back with that early pit stop. We're going to now look at Besaw Jr. in the number 3, who's got a fight with Mark Kalen on slightly older tires. Oh, and Kalen looks a little bit loose off of 4.
Yeah, Besaw Jr. has actually got really, really fresh tires. He's only been on his for 6 laps, which is some of the freshest in the field, and he's up inside the top 10, up in 7th now, so still kind of recovering from that qualifying, but doing a good job of it, and definitely got prospects of getting further up the field.
All right, so can he maybe try and chase down guys like Dinkle or Long with very fresh rubber?
I definitely think Long is available because he's been out there for a lot longer than everybody else. He's been out there for 7 to 8 laps longer than Besaw Jr., so he's significantly offset. At the moment, it's showing him as being 9/10 of a second slower than him on the last lap, but that's definitely got to be traffic assisted, and probably part of it is kind of where you are in the fall-off cycle as well.
So it looks like a 30.1 for Long. And Besaw ran a 29.2. So once again, 9/10 difference. I don't think that was just traffic between them.
Yeah, I just don't expect him to kind of hold on to that throughout the run. It really comes down to if Long has been able to cure some of his issues. And he does have some damage on the car, but there's definitely a lot of cars out there running with more damage than that.
Saw Besaw get a little piece of the wall on my screen that time. 30.3 Long, Besaw Jr. 29.5. So slightly closer together, but only marginally. Both of them definitely slowing down a little bit that last lap comparatively. Colton Lane is our first driver a lap down at this point, sitting in 10th position, still without a caution so far in this race. I'd be curious to know in NASCAR history if they have ever had a cautionless Darlington race.
I suspect the answer to that is definitely no, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I mean, at the moment, we're up inside the top 10 in terms of cars who are now no longer on the lead lap. All but 9 cars are off the lead lap now.
Doing some quick Googling in the background as the drivers at this point look quite settled in. Some of them on different pace, on different strategies. And Acosta down to 1 second now. Easily quicker than Bradley Hawley and consistently quicker than Bradley Hawley. But you mentioned the drivers, evening out potentially over a stint. I wonder at what stage these two will start to find themselves about on equal terms.
I imagine it's going to be pretty soon. And the other thing is we saw how hard it was for Bradley Hawley to pass Abner Acosta in the first run, wasn't able to get it done. So I think that played a role in him making the decision to go for the undercut here, putting the onus on Acosta to pass him rather than the other way around. And you see the sun there is making life a little bit difficult coming off of turn 2 as well.
I haven't quite dug up the fewest cautions. Most caution flags, it looks like, was 17 in 2009. That doesn't sound like a fun time to me.
No, that definitely does not. I would not want to be watching a race that has 17 cautions around here.
Ooh, and Dinkle and Long are fighting for 5th position. Long once again later in the stint with the older tires, just seeming to not have the pace, but the 501 is not able to get past, and this brings Besaw Jr. in to make it a 3-car fight. So does Robert bide his time, or does he try to charge through?
I think he can afford to wait because he still has fresher tires than everybody else in this group, so he can wait if necessary. I don't think it's going to be too long until Dinkle's past the 28 here. Obviously, with Matthew Long, he was struggling in the first run, so he made the decision to come down early, but that's kind of almost a double down. I think you have to do it because you're just losing so much time, but you then know that you're locked into a strategy where you're going to be giving up spots in the next run rather than gaining.
And that was a position loss there as Dinkle goes into 5th, Long back to 6th. Now Besaw is going to try something. Ooh, Besaw is going to try to send it in deep down into 3 and almost pulls, I guess you could call it a slide job.
Yeah, it's pretty tricky to pull that off at this racetrack, but he does have significant tire advantage, so that's probably why he's able to do that. Still, it's a high-risk move, though. He's obviously got such a pace advantage over the 28. You see how much he's pulled away from him in a single turn.
Okay, Acosta's now got this down to 0.5 of a second. This has cut it in half in the last 3 or 4 laps since we looked. And Abner Acosta, the one of the two with fresher tires, but not by a big difference, only 2 laps difference between the pair of them along the front stretch. This time by Hawley running a 30.6, Acosta a 30.5, another 10th down.
Yeah, so Acosta is clearly the quicker driver at this point, but Bradley Hawley's just been extremely solid. That he was able to hold on to the back of Acosta through that first run. It just actually to be close enough to make that undercut strategy work. And I think it's going to be difficult to pass him here because it's not easy to pass in the first place around this racetrack. Obviously, it's very, very tight. But I don't think Hawley's going to want to give this spot up because his whole strategy was cycling out ahead of Acosta. So he's not going to want to make this easy.
And you have to think, once Acosta actually catches Hawley, what kind of difficulties will he have trying to go by? It's one thing to be faster. It's another to actually be able to overtake. He's got it down to 0.3 of a second. The yellow glow of the sunset making it very pretty off to the side, but these drivers are fully focused on what's happening right in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and all while this is going on, there's still 2 of the fastest drivers out on the track. The actual outright fastest right now is Besaw Jr. He ran 30.3 on his last lap, but he does have the freshest tires by about 3 to 5 laps, depending on who you're referencing out of this top 2.
Besaw's might actually be able to get into the top 5 because he's chasing down Dinkle. We'll go there if it starts to erupt before this battle does. 0.283 across the line between Hawley and Acosta. There's the battle between Besaw and Dinkle.
Besaw definitely the quicker car right now, but this is kind of their race at this point because next car up the road is James O'Brien, and he's 9 seconds ahead. So that's probably out of reach, I would say.
Part of me wonders if that City Chevrolet is because of the almost similarity between the name Dinkle and Trickle that he chose to go with that. Oh, back up to our top two, Acosta. He's got a great run, but he lifts before 3. Now he has arrived. Holly has to put up with a lot of pressure from here.
Yeah, and I think as long as Holly maintains the top line and makes sure that Acosta can't actually get a run on him off of turn 4 and underneath him into turn 1, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to pass. Don't think Acosta's going to be able to get it done on the bottom in 3 and 4.
Did the 184 actually brush the wall there? Because he got very close.
Definitely very, very tight. You saw Acosta look like he almost lifted off as though he thought Holly had got into the fence.
That
Holly
time he did.
Definitely there into the fence.
The 5, oh, he has nowhere to go. Has to chase it down the track. Loses some of the time. I don't think Holly did anything untowards there, but that kind of caught Abner by surprise. He thought he had an opening down there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that Holly would have known that was the opportunity that Acosta needed to get the lead, so he has to fight it. You see Acosta going to the bottom in 3 and 4. I'll be impressed if he can pull this one off. I just don't think that there's enough down there to make that work. The key is that he's got to be alongside him on the front stretch for that run into turn 1. If he can't do that, it's going to be very, very difficult to pass him.
Falls back yet again. They've got space behind. 6 seconds to Richard Regan Jr. Oh, this time it's the 5 who earns his Darlington stripe. So these two are at 10/10 right now, leaving nothing on the track.
Yeah, they're actually costing themselves quite a bit of time whilst they do it. They've dropped down into 31s. Richard Regan Jr. 30.6 last time by. James O'Brien at 30.9. He's kind of having his own race at 4th. Don't think he's going to run them down, but Regan Jr. might.
Back into 1 and 2 yet again. And the 5 still not able to get that overlap that he wants to try and attack and get past. So as these two rage on, are not missing much else behind them other than I can tell you that Besaw did get 5th over Dinkle. Ooh, this is looking good. He's right up with him. He'll get a little slipstream. Is this going to be enough? No.
Has to get close enough to get to the left rear quarter panel of Holly, otherwise he doesn't have command of the corner, and Holly knows that. So really this is just coming down to Holly making sure he gets off of turn 4 just good enough to be ahead as they get down into turn 1.
Past the halfway mark of this race with less than 60 laps to go. Excuse me, less than 80 laps to go rather. And Acosta has been very quick. He's led a significant portion of this race. But Bradley Holly, ever since the pit stops, has been the one commanding things. Though he hasn't been as quick as the number 5, Abner Acosta has been threatening, has made a couple attempts. Both of them have been making mistakes, interestingly.
Yeah, and whilst this, I don't know how we didn't just have a caution on the front stretch. The 67 of Pat Harvey had a wild slide, was somehow able to get it back under control and get the car pointed straight, but a ton of tire smoke and a massive lockup for about 1/3 of the straightaway.
Yeah, let's take a look at this because I think this was helped, by Michael Witt. You're going to see him make contact. Both of them come out the other side. Witt with 10th and Lane in 11th. Excuse me, this is Harvey rather, not Lane. This is with Harvey still running in 13th after this. Here it is right here. Just didn't look all that steady. Was not as quick. Almost looked like maybe he was trying to let him through. And the miscommunication caused both of them a hairy moment.
Yeah, very lucky right there for Harvey to actually get that pointing back straight. You see, he was obviously running up at the top and looked like Witt just kind of had a bobble on the straightaway, got into him, nearly turned him around, but both of them very fortunate to get away with that.
By the way, we're down to only 8 cars left on the lead lap. You weren't kidding when you said that this is down to the drivers and there's a wide disparity between them just based on skill alone. Acosta has got pretty equal skill to Holly from what we've witnessed thus far. He's reeled it back into a 1/10 or 2 of a second, trying to fight his rival.
Yeah, they're coming around to start lap 92 now. I suspect that we're going to see pit stops pretty much all fall between lap 100 and lap 110. I strongly suspect that Acosta is going to try and pull the undercut to get himself track position and put himself in the lead just after what he's seen here and how hard it is to pass Holly. He must know that he's got the pace, but Holly's going to be wise to that trick. That's exactly why he's pulled on Acosta in the second run. So it's a question as to who goes more aggressive on the undercut.
Got a pass for 11th, or an attempted pass for 11th. Taylor Stout and Colton Lane are involved in that. They've also got a lapped car behind, or lapping car in the form of James O'Brien, running a very quiet 4th today. So, whoa, and that's the second time we've seen a car clip the outside wall and just suddenly dive to the bottom. He's on board O'Brien. I think he said he's going to let him through. Yeah, he checked up. Didn't want to get in the way of the lead car.
Yeah, O'Brien having a very quiet race right now in P4, obviously. Nearly 10 seconds behind Richard Regan Jr. in third. With Bissell Jr. about 6 seconds behind him, so just no fight at all for him this race. Obviously another solid run, another solid top 5, but it looks pretty lonely out there.
Gotta admit, I really do love how the chrome on iRacing looks when the sun starts to set. Just incredibly gorgeous as they cycle around the tracks. But here we are once again at the 184 and the 5, and almost looking a little bit more like they're stuck in this position now. Have they finally evened out on tire performance?
I think Acosta has just realized that there's not a lot of point in pushing to try and pass every single lap. It's just not going to get either of them anywhere. So I think he's actually taking a breather here. He's going to sit in behind for a couple of laps, and then I suspect he'll either go for a very aggressive undercut, and that's how he's going to try and pull this pass off, or we'll see right before he's about to pit, he'll kind of wind the pressure back up on Holly. Whilst this is happening, Regan Jr. is not that far behind. He was 6 seconds behind. He's been kind of bouncing between 5 and 5.5 behind, depending on how this battle goes. But he's not out of this. I still think he can play a role.
We've mentioned it before, but Bissell Jr. has some of the freshest tires of anybody. I'm double checking to see what he's doing from 4th. He's about 20 seconds from the leader. Actually, now that I say that, so he's nearly a lap down from them. But what do the lap times look like between them? Holly doing 31.0s. Bissell doing a 31.0 and a 30.9. So maybe mildly quicker, about by 1/10 or 2. That should at least keep him safe, but I don't think he's going to be running them down. Whereas a look to the inside by the 5 and a slip up from Holly that time off of 4. They didn't change places, but let's go back and look at that one. Just out of the corner of my eye, saw that happen off of 4. Ooh, and already into 2. That 184 did not look steady.
Yeah, Holly just looks like he's struggling a little bit more with rear tires. Just grabs the wall just a little bit, but was able to get it straightened out. You see Acosta looking to get underneath him. He's nearly there, but has his own moment that stops him getting to the inside of Holly.
These two are earning it today. Whoever wins this one has just driven the wheels off that car. They're getting close to the 100 lap mark. Will we see anybody start to dare to come in? Well, actually, I can already answer that. Mark Kalin is our first to blink.
Yeah, that's about as aggressive as you can go. 60, 61, 62 lap run to the end is the limit on fuel. So he's making that play. I think, honestly, if you're further back in the pack and you're kind of in a line of cars, it's worth trying out.
Nobody else following him in. And, oh, wow. What a change of fortune for the 28, who at one stage was looking like he could be a contender for the lead. He's about to get lapped by our two leaders that we've been watching for so long now. It looks like he is aware, because I think he's checking up a bit to help this.
Yeah, it's not going to be too long before everybody except the top 5 is off the lead lap, which is just a crazy thing to think about. But we have been green for over 100 laps at Darlington, which is just, that in itself is something I don't think I've ever really seen before.
It's a testament to the PRL. Absolutely. This is a league that certainly prides itself in the drivers, even if they aren't the fastest, that they try and aim for being clean. And the 28, once again, just does not like the way this machine drives towards the end of a stint. It's sliding all over the place, and they got another lapped car in the form of Josh Daniels in front of him as well. Daniels trying to pull out of the racing line. The 28 can't go low. He has to hold high. The 184 is going to get one spot. Oh, the 28's not making this super easy.
Yeah, that could have been an opportunity there for Acosta. If Holly had slipped up and actually the position kind of reversed, Acosta might have been able to sneak by following the 28. And it turns out Holly was able to make that pass.
Still no other takers for recent pit stops. Kalen is back out, and actually that's him down low, coming back to racing, but 5 laps down now, as he's lost a lot of time in that pit sequence. We're on lap 103, make that 104 now, and we're anticipating the actual pit window, as we mentioned before, to be around lap 110.
And this is quite disruptive actually for the leaders. Obviously Kalen's got much fresher tires. He kind of needs to go to make his own strategy work, but he's trying to kind of hang out here, not getting in that battle, but he might actually be doing more harm than good. He might be better off just trying to get by Acosta here, because Acosta has now fallen back quite significantly from Holly.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's pushing at all. Kalen just kind of waiting patiently. I mean, he's running 18th, so I don't think he really has too much to fight for other than picking up drivers who run afoul of unfortunate circumstances at this race. Acosta dropping off too, though. 0.8 of a second behind Holly. Something happened here.
It looks like he's starting to struggle towards the end of the run. Holly's time this time by, his last time by was a 31.1.
I'm getting information from one of the spotters telling us that he tapped the wall, and that's why he suddenly has this gap. So we just missed this at some point. He had another moment.
That would make sense because his lap times, he is slower.
Here comes Holly.
But Holly's coming down. See Holly using the apron there, not going through the turn, using the bank to get into pit road, taking the safer option.
So he's going to go first, which is what happened last time. Acosta waited 2 laps longer. Anybody else going to decide to come in? Not seeing any of the mid-packers also choosing this path. Watching through the order, yeah, nobody else is making an aim for pit lane.
And actually, with the pace of the top 5, this is a much safer play than it might otherwise have been in terms of the caution, because obviously with so many cars a lap down, he's only going to go himself probably 1 lap down.
Acosta's in.
2.
Acosta's in. Long is in. Richard Regan Jr. pits from 3rd. O'Brien is going to stay out. He'll inherit the lead over this trio. Have we already got Holly back out? Yeah, Holly's returning to the track. He's coming back in 7th. And actually will be back on the lead lap. No, O'Brien might just lap him.
Looks like he's going to retain just about. Acosta stopping in his box. So this pretty much guarantees that Holly is going to come out the leader after this cycle of stops, and it's going to be on Acosta and maybe Richard Regan Jr. to run him down and make the pass. And that's a tall order. We obviously seen that in the last run Acosta wasn't able to get that done. He's only gone for a 1 lap kind of overcut strategy here, so he's not going to have massively better tires this time. I'm curious as to if this hasn't just swung massively in Bradley Holly's favor.
Well, you say it's not a drastic difference on the tires, but Acosta has lost what looks like, if I'm seeing correctly, 7 seconds.
Oh, Regan Jr.'s just got heavily into the wall in 3 and 4 as well.
And he's out behind, looks like O'Brien. No, Acosta, actually. Now that they cycle through and are timing and scoring updates, he's behind Acosta, so he does return in 3rd. Walter is currently in 4th, but remember, he's on a bit of a longer run, so we could see him try and go pretty late before he finally pits. Oh, no, as soon as I say that, he just comes over the radio, says that he's pitting.
It looks like the majority of the field is elected to come down at this point. As soon as one person decides to pit, pretty much everybody else comes down. It's always the way.
The dominoes fall. So, okay, now we've got proper timing and scoring between our leaders. 3.5 seconds between Holly and Acosta. So lost about 2.5 seconds then in that exchange, maybe a little bit less than that. And that definitely gave advantage Bradley Holly. But they've got to go to the end from here, or at least we expect them to try to go to the end from this, if we don't get a caution, mind you.
Yeah, and see, this is where I'm thinking that this advantage has swung towards Holly, because Acosta now only has 1 lap pressure tires, but he's 3.5 seconds back. It's going to take him a long time to run that gap down, I think. A minimum 10 laps, I would say, with having the... Whoa, see a big moment actually for Holly coming off turn 2. He's not going to want many of those, but yeah. So this is the thing. Now Acosta only has the 1 lap advantage, and he's 3.5 back. He needs to run that down. By the time he's ran that down, the 1 lap advantage is going to be completely gone, and it's going to be dead equal between them. And we've already seen when it's equal, it's very hard for him to make the pass on Holly. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it.
Joao Guerra was our last of the drivers that needed his second stop. That means everybody has pitted. So the order now is Holly leads, Acosta 2nd, Regan 3rd, O'Brien 4th, and Besaw Jr. runs in 5th. But the top 3 have got a very healthy gap back to the rest of the field. It's about 16 seconds between Regan and O'Brien.
Yeah, and Besaw Jr. is actually only 2 to 3 seconds away from falling off the lead lap, and he's running in 5th.
Wow. This is crazy. And Besaw in that number 3 has shown some good pace, but now he's back on the pit cycle that the leaders are on, comparatively to what he was doing before, which was much later. So he's not really going to be able to scamper away. He is fresher than Holly, though, for what it's worth. About 3 laps difference. There we see his onboard. He's going to have a Superman-like effort to try and catch up.
I mean, I kind of feel like he already has, though, to be honest. I mean, he started down in 14th, and he's had a great run into the top 5 here. You see Colton Lanes actually just got into the fence in turn 1, just got loose on entry. But yeah, Besaw Jr. is having a really good run. He might even have an opportunity at James O'Brien. He's only 2.2 back. He is on equal tires now, so obviously he doesn't have the advantage he did in that prior run, but he might have the pace, or he might just have a little bit of luck go his way, and he might have a chance at 4th here. But regardless, to be in the top 5 after being significantly off in qualifying is a really, really good accomplishment.
Yeah, 9 positions up. I think he is our hardest charger to have qualified. We do have those who have gained more. Charles Sumner is up from 21st to 7th. He is a lap down, but the 98 has gained a lot of positions since he gridded up at the beginning of this race. The 67 coming in? No, the 67 getting out of the way. So he's letting our other drivers go by him. Acosta has been reeling in Holly. It was, what, about 3 seconds before when they came out of the pits? It's down to 1.8.
He's definitely running the gap down. He's about 2/10 a lap faster at this point. I just think the pass is now going to be even harder for him to pull off.
This has been an endurance race today for these drivers. No time to relax, just those brief respites in pit lane as they get service done, and then it's back to running. Down in front of him, that was Colton Lane having a wild ride across the pavement of the backstretch. A little bit of a brush from Abner Acosta.
And I think at this point it's fair to say that just about everybody's been in the wall, whether a little bit or a lot at this point in the race. And like I say, that's honestly very normal around this racetrack. Even our two leaders who've really kind of just dominated the race, even both of those have been in the wall numerous times.
Had a wreck for the 62. Mark Kalin out of turn 2. I think that might be day done for him because he immediately came down to the pits. We're going to see if we can pull up the replay, and very similar to what we've watched in the past. Here it is out of turn 2. Going to catch the outside wall, takes him to the inside wall, and the inside was worse.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that coming in a way. If you sort of look at the track seams, you can see that he's all the way up in the highest lane, way above the seam that he'd want to be kind of running between. So it's almost inevitable at that point that you're going to get into the wall and exit.
Ooh, okay, this is going to be interesting. This is Stout and Lane battling for position, but that's Hawley in front of him. And Acosta, last time through, was quite a bit quicker. Last 2 times through was quite a bit quicker. He's chopped it down by much bigger margins now. Wonder if some of that was because of the lap traffic that Hawley had to go past. This is a fight for 10th between Stout and Lane. Stout almost looks like he's closing in on the 184 at times.
Yeah, and he does have slightly fresher tires, not a lot 2-lap pressure, but if he does pass Hawley, it puts him back to being 1 lap down, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but right now there's only 5 cars that are 1 lap down, so it gives him a much greater chance of getting the lucky dog if he's able to do it.
Hawley with another hit with the wall. That time by a 30.3. Acosta 30.2. Acosta's caught the battling duo in front of him. You can see as we look off the back of Bradley Hawley, that is the black, white, and yellow of the number 5 that is within visual distance.
Yeah, it's interesting because this kind of pairing that's behind Hawley is sort of giving him a bit of a hard time at the minute, but it's going to help him out because if he can kind of keep them trapped behind him, Acosta's got to pick his way through them, and it's a fight for position. They're not going to want to give it up.
Certainly, it's still valuable points. Whoa, as both of them get the wall. That was a scary moment for just about every party except for Bradley Hawley. And the 5, I think, checked up a bit as he lost a little time that time through.
It did work out quite nicely for him, though, because it completely negated my point on having those 2 cars between himself and Bradley Hawley. Probably not the way that anybody would have wanted to see that happen, but I doubt Abner Acosta's too concerned right now about it.
It didn't hurt him that badly. He's still got plenty of laps to try and cut this down. That did give the position to Colton Lane, who's now up to Taylor Stout. Unfortunately, had to accept 11th. 0.7 of a second now between Hawley and Acosta. The lights begin to glow and light up the track. Acosta has been threatening to take that first victory of the season. Hawley also, shockingly, still needs his first win and has only had 2 top 5s.
Both of them got in the wall there in 3 and 4 that time. Both are pretty much equal amounts as well.
They mentioned he'd rather have it towards the end of the race than towards the early stages. They're less than 40 to go, almost less than 30 to go soon. We watch from the perspective from Abner Acosta. Oh, he dropped some, up to 0.9 of a second.
And it's so frustrating, actually, when you see that happen. When you see the guy you're chasing, he runs into the wall, and you run into the wall in the exact same point, because you know immediately that was a great opportunity for you to gain some time, and actually you've just completely negated that chance. But I imagine it's probably going to happen again at some point. There's over 30 laps to go. I don't think either of them are done getting into the 3 and 4 wall yet.
Target fixation, unfortunately, for Abner Acosta. So has he rebounded? Has he been able to recollect himself and try and chop away at that bright yellow 184? Another big slide, both from Hawley and Regan. No, that time by Acosta, looking like he's pretty much even on pace with Bradley Hawley. 30 laps to go now.
Half a tenth, so very, very close to equal. Well, I say that, imagine somebody out there who's like, half a tenth? Yes, that is a lot. Yep, half a tenth is a lot, but in this battle, you got to think it's 0.95, it's 0.86 now, so a full tenth that time, but you know, it's running out of laps, and the thing is, if he's only that much faster, it's going to be hard for him to pass. If he was 2 tenths, 3 tenths faster, it gets so much easier to actually pick a different line, run somewhere else, just kind of run a different entry-exit to get a good overlap and actually be able to pull the pass off. If you're only a half a tenth, it's much, much harder to do that.
Plus, if he keeps gathering a tenth at a time, as he did this last time as well, that will bring him to the back of Hawley at about lap 140. That only gives him 20 laps to try and find something that'll stick.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. It obviously reduces your amount of time that you're right there to make, or at least attempt to make a pass.
But he's been, when they aren't touching the wall, it seems pretty steady. 30.7. Acosta, 30.6, another tenth yet again. Let's also keep an eye out for O'Brien and Besaw Jr. Last two on the lead lap. 2 tenths between them. O'Brien is being chased down by Besaw, who's on the same pit strategy as him. He's got the same lap old tires, but he just seems to be a lot quicker in these most recent laps.
Yeah, and the gap when they came out of the pit lane was about 2.5 seconds. And I thought the Besaw Jr. might be able to kind of get to him, might be able to give him some trouble, but I didn't think he'd get to him this early on. It's looking like he might have a really good shot at taking 4th here. And I think he'd definitely take that result after qualifying.
Certainly. Looks like all of his chips were in on the race with an impressive climb for that number 3. Through 1 and 2 yet again at about 3 tenths of a second, trying his hardest, having to wiggle it back and forth to keep it pointed the right way off of 2. Wonder if they're running similar pace to their leaders, or are they going to get lapped here?
They look like they're actually running a little bit quicker than our leaders at the moment. Last time by, James O'Brien 30.69, Bradley Hawley 30.85. So they're about equivalent. It did look like they were going to get lapped, but they've actually opened the gap up. So I think they're safe.
Yeah, I think you're right. So a bit of non-drama there, and honestly, starting a bit of non-drama between them, because Besaw losing a couple tenths himself in those last couple laps. So the 9 getting himself a little bit of a buffer. Keep himself safe, less pressure, easier to focus on your own run. The focus for Bradley Hawley, I couldn't tell you if it was on that F3 box or if it was on the track, but right now it's down to 3 tenths if it was feeding him information.
Yeah, Joshua Daniels pulls to the bottom to let him go there. He's probably not actually too happy with how his day's gone. He did start in 10th, down in 16th and 2 laps down, and going down to 3 laps down here, so I imagine he'll be quite disappointed with that run, but it's a very challenging racetrack, and obviously there's only 5 cars on the lead lap. And
we said about lap 140 that we expect the number 5 to get to him with 3/10 to go. We're going to be at lap 139 next time by. Abner Acosta make that 2/10 up to his rival, and really closing now through 3 and 4. They're going to come to the line. That looked a significant difference into turn 3. A 39.60 for Holly. Acosta a 38.11, almost 2/10 difference.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt here that Acosta is the faster car, but it's whether he can make the pass.
If he can keep up a 2/10 difference, I wonder if that's going to make it a lot easier. They're through 3 and 4 once again, and he is there now. So, 20 laps to try and do something, barring a caution flag, which is yet to appear at any stage in this race. Once again, looking quick on this side of the course as well.
Yeah, the problem is there's just nothing you can do through 1 and 2. You know, like it's totally one lane through there. There's no opportunity at all. You have to be side by side into turn 1 to be able to pull the pass off. There's just nothing going when you kind of get that run down the backstretch. You can go to the inside, but very rare that you see somebody able to hang on and actually able to stay underneath and get that run down the front stretch.
Oh, he clattered the wall yet again. Sparks flying from the number 5. A 10th or 2 there, and he's got to pull it right back in to attack.
This is the difficulty really for Holly, because he knows that this relies on him not making a mistake. He knows he doesn't have the pace, but he knows it's difficult to pass. So he also knows that he has to just not make the mistake, which sounds easy-ish, but it's really not. If he even makes one slip up in 3 and 4 and Acosta doesn't, then I think it's probably game over. But if he keeps it clean, it's going to be hard to pass him.
Speaking of a slip-up, that's what O'Brien had off of 2 last time, as he had to catch the car, but Besaw wasn't able to attack. We're now on board with them. This is the number 3, who has been getting tantalizingly close to the number 9. This is where the mistake came last lap through for O'Brien. This one was a lot smoother, but the 3 is a rocket ship off the corner.
Yeah, he's got some really good drive off. He might, yeah, this might be an opportunity for him here. Just kind of gets to the back of the 9 in the wrong place, though. Right where, oh, the 9's going to give it to him. I'm really surprised to see that with 17 laps to go.
Wonder if James is having his own problems just trying to get this thing to the end. Yeah, his words over the radio were, "I got nothing." So that was definitely letting Besaw Jr. by. We didn't miss anything up at the front. In fact, well, we missed something, but it was a de-dramatization, if you will. Up to 6 or 7 tenths between Acosta and Holly. Abner seeming to start to lose a little bit of what he had in that car.
Yeah,
so
it's just falling back just a little bit, but I'm going to have to look that up and make sure that's a real word in the dictionary after we're done here. That was glorious, though. If that's real, I'm extremely impressed. I'm going to find a way to use that every day.
Well, we've got a fight now between Long and Sumner just behind them for 6th and 7th. Long, you know, interestingly, actually started this race in 6th. So even if he loses this spot, wasn't the worst of days. Just it showed a lot more promise at the beginning of things. Sumner, on the other hand, we've already talked about this, who wasn't able to or didn't choose to set a qualifying lap, has gone from 21st way up the order today.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a strange one for Matthew Long. Obviously, as you say, I don't think the race has gone all the way he wanted it to go, but it's not terrible, you know? Like, he's not going to be in the top 5, which he's probably disappointed with. He's a lap down, which is definitely not great, but he's still in the top 10. He's pretty much solidly in the top 10 as well. He can afford to let Sumner go and finish 7th. And then we've got these other drivers who started kind of looked like they just had no concern at all for qualifying, didn't really care where they started, and have had great race pace. Obviously, Sumner has had a really good charge. He's going to make this pass, it looks like. Nope, not quite got the overlap there, but he's looking like he's on for a 6th place finish. Obviously, Besaw Jr. had him up in 4th, so yeah, a lot of drivers having some good runs from the back today.
And that's Dinkle there, who is also 4 positions. So this is a 3-car fight for 6 now. And, oh, well, that might be 2 cars soon enough. Sumner into the wall. Dinkle is going to take advantage. Is he going to be able to do what Sumner could not? No, couldn't get the run.
The gap in the lead is down to 0.3 now again, so DaCosta's brought it back down, but running out of laps at this point.
Let's take a look at those two now. Impressively, Richard Regan Jr. has not been able to close that down. It's just been this 2-horse race that we've been witnessing the entire time. Regan, of course, suffered from quite a few touches to the safer barrier early in the race, so we don't know if maybe that hurt his pace, prevented him from becoming a factor in this. Going to be 10 to go pretty soon. And Acosta has been an absolute yo-yo at the front. At times, all over the back of Bradley Holly. At times, falling away, looking like the race is over. The current state of things, he's recovered, and he's looking for it. He's pushing hard.
Yeah, he's got to push now, though. He's got to apply pressure. He's got to hope to force a mistake. It's pretty clear that he's not going to be able to just pull the pass off in terms of raw pace. He needs a mistake from Holly, so he's got to get there. He's got to use up the rest of what he's got in the car and just try and force an error.
Just want to give an update. Dinkle did get by Sumner, so that gets him 7th. He sets his sights on Long now. Ooh, very different lines coming off. Whoa, the 5. Oh my goodness, is there anything left in those tires?
I mean, this is the thing. It's practically equal at this point. I mean, it essentially is equal at this point in terms of tires. So this is all just coming down to driver versus driver, and to a lesser extent, I think, car versus car, because this pair has just been so equal throughout the day. I do think Acosta has a little bit more raw pace, but Holly has ran a great race in terms of strategy, got the track position he needed, and honestly, just was kind of surprised to see him move to the front of the field as quickly as he did at the beginning. He kind of went forwards as fast as Regan Jr. kind of dropped backwards in the top 5.
Yeah, considering both his pace in the warm-up and the qualifying did imply that 6 was about where he belonged. But Holly knew better. He's played this one out as a masterstroke. They're going to come across some traffic. Michael Witt is in front of them. Michael knows what he's doing, though. I think he'll probably find a place to pull aside and let this battling pair through. They're going to be 7 to go at the line. That time did not look as good for Acosta, though.
Yeah, it looked like he just pushed up a little bit more right in the middle of the corner. He's got a decent run on exit, but he's just so far behind.
That goes back up to 4/10 doubles from what it was before. Is this where he's abused the tires way too much and they're finally giving way? Or is Bradley Holly potentially maybe turning the wick up and keeping himself clear? A little brush of the wall from the number 5. So that's going to cost him yet more. Oh, it's going to cost him a lot. It's 0.7 of a second.
And I think at this point, if Holly just has clean laps, I think he's out of reach, but just got to do clean laps at Darlington on like 48 lap old tires. It's not an easy thing to do, especially not when a race wins on the line. And you see that just gets into the fence a little bit. It's going to give Acosta a little bit of a chance, but he himself looked like he was having his own moment there because he was running the bottom of the racetrack in 3 and 4.
Just ask Long how difficult it is because Sumner also got by Matthew and all of that. So the 28 is now down to 8th position. Charles up to 7th and Dinkle up to P6. So I think he made a pass. Yeah, he must have made a pass on Sumner at one stage. And that battle for the lead is gone because it's a second between Holly and Acosta with 4 laps to go. There is our leader, Bradley Holly. for a first win of the season. If he can take it through for 4 more laps, 3.5 more laps already, he can finally stand on the top step of the podium and actually give a shot in the arm to his championship hopes. Off of 4, gets the 3 to go signal this time.
Gap's actually extending out a little bit as well, so he's getting under less and less pressure, but it's still not over at this point. He's got a little bit of lap traffic in front of him. Don't think it's really going to play a part in it, but it's still got to get this last 2.5 laps right. Just no mistakes.
And hope that those in front of him don't catch him up in their mistakes too. That's Witt still up in front getting the popsicle sticks. So 2 to go. Acosta starts to hold station now. Gets it to 9/10 of a second, but this is too little too late for any sort of serious attempt. Bradley Hawley down the backstretch. Sees another lapped car as well. That's Pat Harvey, 2 laps down in the 67. He gains a lot on the 28 into the corner. Is Witt going to just let him through, or is he going to try and finish 1 lap down? White flag is out for the 184. Who would have thought it'd take 7 races into the season for him to finally get a victory? As he comes around 1 and 2, he keeps Acosta at arm's length, still 9/10 of a second, 8/10 of a second behind him. Just 2 more corners to go. Bradley Hawley is going to be able to take victory here at Darlington, the one that feels oh so special. Your victor here today is Bradley Hawley.
And I think that's such a great performance by Bradley there. As you see a little bit of not quite post-race content for those guys ahead, but I mean, there is just extremely hard earned. An entire 160 laps at Darlington, no cautions at all. And I mean, there's been times throughout this league where it's kind of looked like he struggled to take the fight to drivers like Regan Jr., but that was definitely just a masterclass performance right there.
Only 5 cars left on the lead lap. We're going to take a quick break ourselves. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away.
All right, welcome back to the PRL NASCAR Cup Series at Darlington. 160 laps of green. Who would have thought that? That never happens at Darlington, but it went to Bradley Holly, who won the race with a fantastic performance from Abner Acosta, who ran him really tight the entire race. It was pretty much a two-car race between the pair of them for 160 laps. Richard Regan Jr. started on the pole, but actually kind of faded away the first run, was never able to recover, and finishes 10 seconds behind in third. Robert Bissell Jr. came from 14th, a little bit of a disappointing qualifying performance for him to finish in fourth. So actually a really great recovery and a great race performance by him. James O'Brien, another driver, started in third, just didn't really have the same race pace as the leaders, fell back to being the last car on the lead lap, came home in fifth. Trent Dinkle, Charles Sumner, and Matthew Long had a titanic battle for that sixth spot at the end of the race and came home sixth, seventh, eighth. Michael Witt lined up in ninth, with Colton Lane, the first driver, 2 laps down, in 10th. Brandon Walter, Waldo Walden, Taylor Stout, Adam Zemke, Patrick Harvey rounded out down to 15th, two laps down. Joshua Daniels, Joao Guerrero in 16th and 17th, 3 laps down. And then everybody else called it early after a number of incidents. Mark Kalin, 45 down. Baron Hilton, 102 down. Doug Evans, 116. Danny Cervantes, James Duke, Chad Brown, Patrick Cowgill, and Elliott White out on the first lap of the race. And with us now, we have Bradley Holly, our race winner. Now, that was a pretty incredible race, I have to say. I don't think I've ever seen 160 laps green on iRacing. And you had an awesome battle with Abner Acosta. At the beginning of the race, I was honestly kind of expecting to see Richard Regan Jr. kind of drive out there from the pole. That didn't happen. You started back in fifth. You actually kind of didn't have an amazing qualifying pace, I would say, about 2 tenths off the pole, but race pace was just so strong, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Qualifying for me is more just try to be up there to get ready to, try to battle it out. And, I practiced the race set for a majority of the day today to figure out what I needed to do. And, I have a feeling the first green flag stop is what really put me in position.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, and it was something I noted at the time. Obviously, you kind of got the undercut on Abner, and then afterwards, it looked like he did have a little bit more pace than you for the rest of the race, but he was never able to pass you, and I was so surprised that he didn't try the same strategy that you did on him for the last pit stop, and it kind of, as soon as I saw that you were only 1 lap apart from each other, I figured it was going to be tough, but it was probably going to be doable to the end.
Yeah, I mean, to even out the pit stop, it was 55 to 110, and I decided to short pit a little bit, 4 laps to try to catch Abner off, and I feel like I did. I don't think he was expecting me to go in the pits that early, and just gaining the time I did on both pit stops, I think really helped me, because he had to burn his tires up just to get back to me.
Yeah, that was something that we noted. Obviously, after that second stop, he only had the 1 lap advantage, but he was 3.5 seconds back, and obviously he had to run you down. And by the time he got to you, it looked like the pass was going to be very, very difficult. But both of you had numerous incidents with the wall, and kind of talk us how difficult it is to actually drive a car like this around Darlington, because I think from the outside, it doesn't actually look as difficult as it is.
Oh, it's extremely difficult. The times I hit the wall in 3 and 4, it was a little too much brake, and I could feel the left front start to either chatter or start to lock up and cause a 4-wheel slide. And then with just how close you have to run at the beginning of the run, and then just a lack of grips on old tires, it's tough. It was. Basically tonight, I felt like whoever hit the wall less had the better car.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And kind of looking at it, that honestly is pretty much Darlington. You're always out there racing the track, and less so kind of racing the other drivers out there. But really a fantastic performance, and I've got to say, it's looked difficult to run up there with kind of the newcomers to the series, such as Richard Regan Jr. the past couple of seasons, but. Tonight was a really, really epic performance, and it was great to watch. And before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I definitely want to thank the Waterback guys. Those last few laps, they were helping me, telling me information that I need, all the information I needed to know. I mean, at one point I had to tell them to give me less information because it was starting to break my concentration. And then I'd like to thank you guys for broadcasting us week in and week out, and all of PRL.
Well, thank you for coming and chatting with us, and congratulations on the race win. Good luck next week at Dover.
Thank you.
And lining up second, after a titanic battle with Bradley Holly, Abner Acosta, that one's got to kind of hurt, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, it hurts. But I definitely wanted to win. But overall, a very good finish, especially with my results this season. So I can't be that upset.
Yeah, it was actually something that we noted up in the booth. We've kind of seen that you've had great short run performance, realistically, since you kind of joined the PRL league. But something that is sometimes like it's eluded you a little bit is that long run performance. But today, it was the opposite. You actually looked like you had the best long run performance of anybody out there. And the first run, you went to the front of the field, and kind of from that point onwards, it was just a battle between yourself and Bradley Holly. It looked like he had a little bit better strategy, but you were always there at the end of each run, and you ran him hard all the way to the end of the race. So I want to give you a shout out for that, because that's really impressive around a track as difficult as Darlington is. But kind of, how do you prepare for this? Obviously, I don't think anybody prepared for a 160 lap green flag run. So how do you kind of work out a strategy on the fly to deal with that?
Well, obviously the tires and everything is due to everybody at Private Label Team Hype that makes the sets. I just run them, and I honestly don't do much in regards to the set. Just run them, tell them how I feel, and that's pretty much it. So I know James, Richard, and Brandon work on the sets during the week. I was doing, honestly, like maybe, I think I did like 250 lap stints, but definitely did not go more than 100 laps. I thought there would be a lot more yellows. But yeah, I felt like I definitely had a better car than Bradley, but he got ahead on the pit stops, and it was just so hard to pass. Like, I would get close to his bumper, and I just couldn't really get a run. And every time I did, I think we both got squarely, and I just didn't want to kill each other. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely looked like it was going to come down to a mistake from Bradley, especially the kind of point that I'd pinpointed was coming off of turn 4. It looked like what needed to happen was just a little slip up from Bradley, just so that you could get to his left rear and just have kind of the authority of the line into turn 1. And you never kind of got that. You got very, very close a number of times, but never just able to get alongside him into turn 1. But gotta say, man, congratulations. That was an epic brawl to watch. I'm glad I got to see that. And before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to, again, everybody at Private Label Team Hype, Ethica, Tomahawk, Munism, and again, everybody in our squad that makes the sets. Hopefully, I think this is my first podium this season. If it is, hopefully this is where the change starts to happen, because I think I've been doing pretty good, but just self-sabotage myself on pit stops and things like that. So hopefully this is not the first for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Obviously, you've had great pace, and congratulations on the second place, and good luck next week at Dover.
All right, thank you, guys. Have a good night.
That was Abner Acosta, second place today. We've also got third place finisher Richard Regan Jr. with us. But Richard, you factored in early, and then late in the race, you suddenly seemed to drop off. Also had quite a few contacts with the wall early in the race. Were all these things related? Did you damage the car and lose some pace?
Yeah, once you hit the wall here, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can get away with it a little bit and scraping it easily, but I mean, I pounded the wall too many times, and I wasn't expecting the car to react the way it did in the beginning. We didn't really know how the car was going to react in the pack until we did our pit practice earlier. I didn't have much time to race this week because I was out of the state, but the car was really good. I made a few mistakes, and that was it.
Unfortunately, it seemed to kind of take you out of the equation as it was mostly between Holly and Acosta there at the end. But impressive that you were able to keep it up in third. What do you think of that full green flag race? At what point did you start to think, uh-oh, I got to start kind of strategizing for this if it goes green the whole way?
Oh, I mean, it was awesome doing that all green. I think it shows a lot about PRL and the drivers we have in the league. And yeah, I like to come into a race thinking it's going to stay green just because, I mean, you're not really guaranteed a caution unless it's like Talladega. But so you never know. So like you just always want a game plan for it to stay green. And then when the cautions come out, you got to just like change up on the fly there.
Well, this was a very tough track to race at. We saw a number of drivers certainly fall victim to it. But we go to another one that certainly seems to chew up a lot of cars, Dover. Do you think you can keep up this great run of top fives that you've been doing?
I think so. Dover is one of my favorite tracks, one of my best tracks. So I love the concrete. So I'm definitely going to be putting in as much practice as I can. I have a light work week this week, so I can be on a lot. And yeah, hopefully we'll have a good piece.
Well, best of luck to you there. Who would you like to thank for this podium today?
Yeah, I got to thank James O'Brien. He puts in a lot of time every week into these sets, and I'm not always the easiest to work with. So yeah, definitely got to shout out James. He deserves a lot of the credit for my finishes. Brandon Walter, Sheldon Adkins, my crew chief tonight. He made really good pit calls all night, strategy calls. Abner, he ran second. He had a shot to win. The dirty air is really tough to pass. Ty Stover, Tommy Milner, Connor Harrington, Kevin, Josh Conker, Private Label, Ethica, Team Hype, Neonism, Susan G. Coleman, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Oculus Glasses, Neonism Paints. I think I said them. This awesome tribute paint was from Neonism too. So if you guys are looking for a paint, go to facebook.com/Neonism. Tell them the PRL sent you and everyone that broadcasts.
Great stuff there from Richard Regan Jr., who finished third today. And that's going to take us out with some thank yous of our own, starting, of course, with Simulation Motorsports Affinity. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net. And, of course, NinjaTrader. Get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, the Butt Kicker. Feel what you've been missing at thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen to find her Bandcamp, where there's more of her work. Thanks to the team today, Christian, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. Link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment, because the next race in a week's time is going to be at Dover, Sunday, May 16th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.